I just saw the new Blumhouse film Upgrade, and I'll tell you what I thought about it right after this. Hi folks, welcome back to Pop Pop Fizzle. I'm Jeff. I'm usually joined by my wife Heidi for these sorts of reviews. However, she had to work tonight, so I had to go on my own and check out the new Blumhouse film Upgrade. I'm going to tell you what I think about that, or what I thought about the film, non-spoiler, of course, and then later on I'll go through some spoiler discussion, but I will label it and give some space so that you know to stop watching if you haven't seen the film so far. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you about something special going on at my website, jpatricklamar.com. If you don't know, when I'm not doing YouTube videos with my family, I actually write books, mainly young adult fiction and occasionally some poetry. But I'm running a special right now, a sale of 40% off on almost everything in my store with promo code SUMMER18. So if you're interested in having some new reading material for the summer, drop by jpatricklamar.com and use promo code SUMMER18 when you check out. You can get lots of different things in print or digital, including my latest two works of fiction, Tales of the Evermore, Volume 1 and Volume 2, which are my young adult fantasy novels. So check those out with that promo code, and I would greatly appreciate it. Now, on to Blumhouse's Upgrade. If you've seen the trailer for Upgrade, nothing that I'm going to talk about in this non-spoiler section will be a surprise to you. So I'm going to keep my discussion to elements that were in the trailer, and then I will let you know when I'm moving on to spoiler territory. So I went to see Upgrade tonight. It was an 11:10 p.m. show, and I really wasn't sure what to expect. I had enjoyed the trailer that I had seen, which made it seem like a sci-fi thriller, and that really was what it was. Blumhouse, normally known for more of the horror side of things. Interesting to see them sort of branching out into new territory with films like this. I felt like the movie was quality from start to finish. They didn't spend too much time developing the sci-fi aspects of the world, other than what was needed for the story. So I appreciated that. There was no reason to dive too far off the deep end. No real understanding of how far into our future this was set. They just give us a proper setting to tell the story that they're trying to tell. I always appreciate that. Don't waste time with things that aren't furthering the story. All the performances were good. I thought Logan Marshall Green is the lead in this film, and I've seen him in other things before. I've always been, fairly impressed with him. Not sure how many leads he's had. He and Tom Hardy have a similar vibe for me, so I tend to confuse them in my head a little bit. I thought he was great in this. And it's funny that I say Tom Hardy because there's a little bit of that same vibe that we get in the Venom trailer, where, as you've seen in the trailer for Upgrade, once this character is upgraded, Gray, he has this chip stem that is talking to him, and so there's a lot of him talking to someone who can't be heard by other people, which is a very similar vibe to what we get in the Venom trailer with Tom Hardy. I felt like Logan Marshall Green did a great job of playing through that. Also playing through elements of grief and your world being turned upside down and dealing with new circumstances. All of that was done well. All the supporting cast I thought was fine as well. No real standout performances, but I thought everybody was solid. And that's really what I want to see in something like this. It's not a huge budget film, but it's just a well done film, and it kept me engaged from start to finish. Normally, we grade these things as either a fizzle, a pop, or a double pop. Fizzle if it is not worth seeing. A pop meaning, sure, see it when you get a chance, but you don't have to rush out to the theater. And then a double pop if you need to drop what you're doing and go see it now. For me, Upgrade is a solid pop. I definitely recommend the movie. It's quality entertainment. I don't think you necessarily need to see it on the big screen. It's definitely a step up from the usual, straight to the Sci-Fi Channel sort of movie. However, I don't feel like most of the visuals need to be seen on the big screen to warrant that big screen ticket price. A little tongue-tied, sorry. But Yeah, a solid, entertaining film. I felt like from start to finish. Now there were some elements of this, and I'll discuss this more later in the spoiler discussion. But there were some elements of the story that I saw coming from a mile away. Now some of that may be because I watch so many movies and I've seen so many of these things that my brain just puts it together. The other side of that may be that I do write novels, so my writer brain sometimes picks up story elements that other people aren't really firing on those same cylinders. But I feel like every time I felt like I was sure about where it was going, even though I saw it coming, they still zigged and zagged enough that I didn't feel like I was spinning my wheels through something I had already figured out. And they need to get props for that. That's a hard thing to pull off. And we'll get more into that in the spoiler part of the discussion. But overall, I felt like it was a solid pop. You should see the movie when you get a chance, whether it hits streaming, whether it's in Redbox, or, if you're tired of the summer glut of movies or you've seen them all already, all of those big screen blockbusters, then, maybe you're looking for something different. And maybe to you, it is worth seeing on the big screen. But for me, it was a solid pop, and I think you should definitely check it out when you get a chance. Now, here's where I'm going to take the spoiler break. I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to give you a 5-second countdown, and then I will proceed with spoiler talk. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoiler discussion is going to start here. So if you haven't seen the movie, just stop the video here and come back after you've seen the film. I thought this film was done really well. As I said, I felt like all the acting was solid. As far as what I saw coming early on, I did see that the character of Aaron, who is the one who brings the notion of STEM into the movie, was likely, at least in part, the villain of the tale. I also suspected a little bit that STEM itself was not as altruistic as it seemed. So I saw both of those things coming. However, the way that the movie dealt with them and the way that the movie sort of drug us along through them, and then Aaron not being necessarily a willing participant, but someone who was pushed to do the things that he had done by STEM. I thought that was a nice twist in what could have been just a typical sort of sci-fi channel movie. I thought it was a nice a way to turn that a little into a direction that a lot of movies would not. I also thought it was fairly ballsy to go with an ending that was not a happy ending for our hero. Now, you could argue that it was happy because he saw his wife again and felt at peace, but the bottom line is that STEM wins in the end and has control of a body, and there's not much telling what sort of chaos or disorder he will cause now that he's in control of a human form, and not to mention all the lives that were ended in his attempt to get there. So this was more of an Empire ending. If you're a fan of the Star Wars movies, this is a downer of an ending. The good guys don't win. The bad guy ascends to power here. And, if it ends here, this is the only movie that we get, it's a solid little story. But if it's something that Blumhouse wants to come back to at some point, I think seeing the villain ascend and how that would happen and what sort of things he would get up to now that he's in possession of the body could be interesting fodder for another story. So if they choose to go that direction, I would definitely be interested in checking it out. But I don't think it needs it. I think it's a solid little story on its own. As I said, all the acting is solid. I did have one little nitpick, which was about some of the makeup for the film, and that was that at the point that the main character Gray, is back home. It may even be before he gets back home, but I'm fairly certain it's when he first gets back home. His beard is overgrown, and there was a close-up of his face where it looked not completely fake, but it looked like they had added to his beard. My guess is, for the scene where she would trim it down to what was actually his real beard there. But it felt like to me that they had sort of haphazardly stuck some pieces on, and it just didn't look convincing, but that was for a few seconds out of this film. It wasn't a huge distraction, and that may have just been because it was on the big screen, and you know, you tend to notice those things when they're the size of a building in front of your face. So that was kind of nitpicky for me, but otherwise, you know, I really liked that the future tech that they gave us was very limited. We didn't see big sweeping vistas of, you know, Spielbergian, you know, CG or Lucas type CG landscapes. We just saw a really cool futuristic car. We saw some drones. We saw a couple of cool buildings, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the tech that's involved in the actual story. And I think that's good because they didn't need to give us any more than that to tell the story they were trying to tell. I think sometimes movies get carried away and balloon their budget up because they get sort of wrapped up in the visual side of everything, but if the visual isn't serving the overall story, then it could be just a waste. And so I really like that this movie didn't do that. They kept everything pretty fairly contained. We didn't have a huge cast of characters, but I really enjoyed it. Now, it is a fairly gruesome film a couple of times. A couple of the kills are pretty violent and pretty gory. That surprised me a little bit. Going in, I wasn't expecting it to be quite that violent, but it wasn't off-putting. In fact, to me, this reminded me of a good, 90s sort of sci-fi action film that you would have seen, Schwarzenegger or Stallone in at, that point of their careers. But yeah, I thought it was a nice sort of throwback action sci-fi thriller type film, and like I said, I enjoyed it. So it was a pop for me. That'll be the end of the spoiler discussion. I won't keep you any longer. A solid film. Check it out when you get a chance. If not at the theater, then definitely on Redbox or Netflix or wherever it streams later on. None of those people are sponsors. Anyway, if you like this video, please be sure and click that thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel because that really helps us continue to do these sorts of things. And if you're already subscribed, click the bell icon so that you can be notified the next time we drop a review or a trailer reaction or any of those things. And as I said, be sure and hop by my website, jpatricklamar.com. Use promo code SUMMER18. For the next few weeks, you'll be able to stock up on summer reading material there at 40% off. So check that out. And until next time, bye.